Welcome to Tracking the Cats. This is the bi weekly podcast of everything Catamounts. Our sponsor, as always, is Stanberry Insurance, not to be confused with Cord Stansberry from the basketball team at Western. But Kevin Stanberry at Stanberry Insurance covers all your insurance need anywhere in North Carolina and North Georgia. He's got offices in Highlands, Waynesville, and of course the home office in Silva. I got my co-host here today, Steve White, and we got a special guest on this great week following the signing day last week. So, Steve, do you want to introduce our guest?
Well, Coach and I have a family connection, although it's not a very friendly one, that goes back to my junior year in high school when his dad, Gerald Odom, was a star player, one of the best high school players in the state of Florida at the time for the old Apopka High School Blue Darters. And we opened up with them. And again, my first introduction to his dad was I called a play, a trap play, go into the hole. I'm leading through. I'm going to try to block him. He's coming full force at me. Forearm shivers me right back into the tailback, and he wraps both of us up and takes us both down at the same time. So that was quite an introduction to the Odom family. That was, I think,
That's funny.
1959, something like that, 58, 59. But I've been around Catamount football, coach, for over 60 years, and I can't recall one of our football coach, maybe other than Coach Kerwin Bell, with as much football experience as our guest today, Coach Jerry Odom. He played for the Florida Gators, was a teammate of Coach Bell's. He was a 2 year starter at inside linebacker there for the Gators, played professionally for 7 years, served as assistant coach at Florida, at East Carolina, head coach at high school in South Georgia, then was a coach in pro football with the old Philadelphia Soul. Then he joined Coach Bell's staff at Jacksonville University for 6 seasons, assistant head coach, defensive coordinator. Then went on to Tusculum College over in Tennessee, in Greenville, Tennessee, for 8 seasons, where he was had a South Atlantic Conference championship team before joining Coach Bell and his staff last season. That's quite a tremendous resume, Bob.
Yeah, I guess so. And I'm excited to have you on board. It's been a good year and a half so far since you joined us. And I was just wondering, okay, you had connections to Coach Bell, but no apparent connections to Western. How did you decide to come here when you learned about the job?
Well, Kerwin and I obviously go way back. He's a little bit older than I am. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Last year, a little about this time, maybe a little bit before, he called me and just said, "Hey, are you tired of being a head coach?" And at the time, Tusculum was a great place, outstanding people, but it was tough. I think I ended up, like with I was 5 or 6 games above 500, which wasn't exactly what I was looking for when I went there. But the issue is, I think we had 22, 23 scholarships, and then just the best teams in that league have 30 to 35, and that's where people don't understand D2 football. And when you really look at D2 football, if you got another 10 scholarships over somebody, that's like having maybe 25 more players on some kind of money. And it became hard. I'm proud of the work we did at Tusculum. We won a championship. We were in it 2 other times in my time there, and but it was just it was tough. It's a small school. You got to carry 170 kids on your roster. Um, yeah, you had locker rooms for 120. Yeah, yeah. So it was, we built extra lockers. We did, you just do a little bit of everything, and I guess it was the right time for me, just because. And I don't know if I'd have done it for anybody else, but KB and I go way back. We know each other. I knew that he was going to get things going over here the way he wanted to, and he just wanted the defense to play to the level of the offense. Now, I don't think we did that last year. I'm very disappointed with, really, if you go back and look at it, which I have over and over and over, it was the big plays this year. When you look back at it, we were really good at sometimes, but then we gave up too many explosion plays, which in my career I have not been a part of that much. And we've got to be mentally tougher. We've got to do our jobs better. And hopefully the second year in the system is going to make us, a little bit, take that leap that I want to take. I'm certainly not happy with the way we played. It's just not my kind of football.
Well,
Well,
to that point, and is we've gotten used to that over the last 3 or 4 years. The offense has just been boom, 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 but our defense holds tight, third and long, and all of a sudden we get hit. So we are looking forward to filling those gaps, Coach.
yeah. Well, Coach, we've lost several outstanding players on both sides of the ball from last season's 7-win team through both graduation and the portal. Looking at this current recruiting campaign that's I'm sure is still ongoing, how do you feel about this group of now it's 30 plus, I think maybe 37 total signees
Yeah.
filling our needs for the coming season? Have you feel like y'all have done a good job of filling the gaps with what we've lost?
Yeah, I do. I think that, if you look on the defense side of the ball, we basically lost three guys, lost a corner, a D tackle, and a linebacker. And I think we replaced all those guys. I mean, you look at the linebacker we brought in, Jordan from Middle Tennessee State, 10 game starter, outstanding player, was the second leading tackler on their team. After talking to their linebacker coach, it didn't sound like he wanted to get rid of him. Or he didn't want him to go away. But we were able to get him here, and I think he's going to be an outstanding player in what we already got come back. You got Blue Monroe coming back with Hayward, him, Gino. That's a nice starting four right there at the linebacker group. To build off of, and then we can add obvious to it with these other young guys that we've brought in. I think a D tackle, we were able to bring in, one midterm guy and Jaleel, and he's a big body. Like, yeah, I think that's one of the things we talked about is getting bigger on defense, especially inside. All the guys that we got are, probably in the 6'4", 310, 315 range. So, I think that's a big part of stopping the run, be able to push the pocket inside is to be able to have those things. At corner, we lost Jordy and, decide football smart they want to be, how much they want to where we are so far.
We could spend this entire show on the portal and the NIL and how it's changed the game, and it's changed all the
uh,
sports, not just, but it's probably impacted football the most.
right.
So, tell me, how does that change the game for you? I know in late November and early December, everybody on the Catamount boards is complaining and feeling like crap. Oh gosh, we've lost all these guys. But man, it opened some opportunities for us. Tell us about that.
We lost some good football players. Quite frankly, I would say probably we expected to lose probably out of the seven we lost or whatever. I think we expected to lose four of those guys. Basically told us 4 to 5 that, hey, this is what I'm looking to do before the season even started if I have a good year. So we knew that a lot of those situations were going to happen. And I think our level of panic was not near the level of panic of other people. Let's just say that. You know what I mean? I think for us as coaches, you're just trying to make sure you find the right kid that can fit your culture, that can come in and take you to a better level. Like, if you look at it, the linebacker who left was a part-time starter. Like him and Blue Monroe split time, and honestly, right, in a thing. So I think we have some really good players that are already here that people may not know of yet, and I'm looking forward to coaching those guys. I don't get too worked up about this stuff because at the end of the day, what am I supposed to tell a kid who can make hundreds of thousands of dollars in his senior year of football, for one year? and he's making triple what I'm making. I'm just start laughing about it. I'm like, what am I supposed to tell this youngin? Like I can't tell him not to do that. And unfortunately, that's where we are. I think we have to be smart enough to understand that we develop guys well. That is obvious, right? When you have seven or 6, 7, 8 guys, whatever, going, to the power four, from our team, that tells us that we're doing some things correctly. And I think that helps us in recruiting. You almost have to use that to your advantage. Like, hey, you come here, you knock it out of the park for 2 or 3 years. We want you to stay for 4, but if you knock it out of the park for 2 or 3 years, you can move on and make make some real money. And what am I supposed to tell a kid? Hey, I want you to be catamount for life. Yes. But at the same time, if this kid can make, we had a kid make almost 500 or a little over $500,000. What am I going to, I'm not going to tell him not to do that. That would be one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. Cause that's not, if we care about our players, you have to look out for their well-being, and we want them to be cats. We want them to graduate. We want them to do all the right things. But in this day and age, that's just the way the game's changed.
Yeah. Well, Coach, two of our high school and transfer recruits for the coming season from the state of Florida. Obviously, Florida is a very fertile recruiting destination for not only us, but for most of the college football programs in the Southeast. What
Yeah.
is it about the Sunshine State where you grew up and football, high school football? I know it's a different world down there.
I tell you where it's really not that much different till you get down toward the bottom. The Miami, Fort Lauderdale area is a little different. You gotta the thing that we have going for us down there is you have to have ends down there, right? And those high school coaches have to trust you to take care of their kids. Well, what happens is, Kerwin and them, and we did the same thing at Tusculum. I think we would bring in 4 or 5 guys, and they'd say, "Man, this place is safe. I could get a great education." The safe part people don't think about, but these kids,
Yeah.
some of the places they come from are not, not the easiest places to live. This place is safe. I can get a great education. I got 3 hots and a cot. You know what I mean? I got a great place to live. We're going to play high end football, and they're going to come to a place where people care. The stands are going to be full on game day. And I think when you sell that to these kids, down there, and the more you get here, the more that want to come, because the other guys will recruit for you. And that's really what it is. And I think that's what we've done in Florida as a whole, is when you get 4 or 5 from an area and those guys all know each other, they can hang out and do all that kind of stuff. I think that helps. And I think the other things help really is Legion Airline. I laugh about it, but it flies. You can go round trip for $200 or $150. You can't hardly buy gas for that nowadays. Driving. So it allows their parents to come see us play. They fly right into Asheville. It's not a, hey, I got to go to Atlanta, I got to go to Charlotte, I got to go to all these different places. It flies right up there. It's a 45-minute drive over. Game day, they can come over and do an Airbnb. They can do the casino. They can do whatever they want. And I think their parents enjoy that aspect of it, and we try to show off that part of it too.
Well, I really like the fact that they can get there easily. And, again, just going back to the Catamount board, the post where everybody posts messaging, they were like, oh, if you're from a big city area, why would you want to come to the mountains? Well, we've had a lot of those guys stay. But looking at the upcoming roster, do you know of any folks that we should be watching out for, defense, offense as well as defense? But you've got your eye on the defense, of course.
Well, I mean, obviously, we lost some really good offensive linemen. So I think if you start on the offensive side, our skills all back. I mean, let's be honest. Our top 5 running backs are back. Probably our top 6 receivers. Minus the kid that went to Tulsa, are back. Our quarterback who started first last 5 games, 4 games, is
Right.
back, and he played very well. So I think really, if we can get the offensive line going, obviously losing Derek Simmons and those guys, up front. But if you think about it, Derek only played 5 games last year, 6 games. He was hurt a lot, and so we've got a couple guys there. I can't pronounce his last name, but Elia. I can't.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Nobody
Elia,
could.
Elia, the big Serb, you know. But he's probably 6'8". They put him at 6'7", 320. He's probably 350 right now. He's probably close to 6'8", 350. He's one of the biggest humans I've ever been around. He moves pretty good. So, you know, I think he'll be really, really good. I think we picked up another kid. We got some really good international kids, but to be honest, a kid out of Spain that was playing at Mississippi Valley State. Now, both those kids, uh, who's like 6'5", 305. But both those kids played high school football in the States. They didn't come over like Elia played at IMG, and I think the guy, I'm trying to remember the kid from Spain's name, but he was from Mississippi Valley State. But he played like in, I want to say, out west somewhere. So they came over knowing that they wanted to play at this level, and really like both those guys, and we got two, three other guys. We brought in like 5 or 6 transfers, so those guys will be, guys we depend on a little bit to go with the other guys that we do out back.
Cool.
uh, Coach, you're looking at when you're out recruiting and so forth, you're looking at potential players for Western Carolina. You know what your needs are. What qualities, other than pure athletic ability, size, and all these things, are you looking for in a kid? I know you got to think of where they're coming to, location, change in environment. So, what are you looking for these talents other than just the pure athletic ability?
Well, I mean, to me, I think that one of the things we talk about all the time is, are you a self starter, right?
Yeah.
Are you a guy that cares about football? Are you a guy that this means something to you? Because at the end of the day, when you get here, and I tell this to kids all the time, right? The average NFL player, plays 3 years. That's the average career now, 2.9 years, right? So, you know, what we always talk about is, so if you said 5 years in college and 3 years there, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Or what are you going to use football, you know, for in the next 8 years to make your life a heck of a lot better, right? How do you want to be a great player? You want to be a great student athlete. You want to do those things that are correct and use football to help you get the things that you want to be, to be better at. Now, what we look for in people for our team, again, like I said, self starter, guy that's going to grind in the weight room, guy that really wants to learn the game. Because I think talent, you have a lot of talented people, but guys who don't understand football, and that's really what hurt us last year a little bit. I think, on defense, I felt like our football IQ wasn't near as high as it needs to be. I think we're getting there. Another year, we're working on that this offseason a little bit because we have a little bit more time because we're not just putting stuff in. But I think anybody's football IQ, you grow so much in the game from high school to college, right? It's such a jump. And I tell freshmen all the time, they go, "Well, coach, how much do you think I'm going to play here?" I'm like, "I don't know. How much can you handle?" Because really it's about the mental concept of the game and how much you can handle. Most of these kids on defense play, let's say you're a DB, you might play 2 or 3 coverages tops. When we might play three or four coverages on a series. Like we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 coverage concepts that you got to learn and play fast doing. And I think that's the difference between high school and college. You can be a great player, but if you don't understand the game of football, that's the part that you're going to struggle with the most.
Coach, what we've seen over the years with you is it's hard to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask a little bit tougher question here. It's not your job in the off season to be looking at the other schools, but how do you think we're going to rank up against our competition this fall?
I mean, I feel like if you look at what people lost, right? Everybody looks at themselves, right? Like, oh my God, we lost 7 guys, or oh my God, we lost this, we lost that. I mean, I think we're going to be one of the top teams in the conference again. I mean, Mercer, you look at Mercer, they lost 3 of their best D linemen in the portal, and then they graduated 7 guys on defense, right? So, I mean, that really is the majority of your defense. And that D line was what they did well. Now, they'll still be a really good football team, right? They lost their running back. They lost two of the receivers. They lost three offensive linemen. They're in the same boat. You know, a lot of people are. Chat lost their whole back end to the portal and and their best linebacker. Wofford lost both their quarterbacks. You know, they lost both their
Yeah.
I don't think they have a quarterback that's ever taken a snap on their, on the
Right.
on their team right now, right? You know, I think the only team that probably didn't lose much is probably the Citadel. You know, didn't look like they lost a lot, but it's hard. You know, but their issue is they had like 30 grad transfers because you got to go and be a plebe if you want to transfer as an undergrad. Well, who wants to go be a plebe? You know, like do that first year military stuff coming from another school. You're not getting that very often. So they have a lot of grad transfers. So year to year, you don't know what they're going to be because they may bring in 25 or 30 grad transfers. You know, if you look at ETSU looks like they're getting some good guys coming back in, but they lost whether it be graduation, because half those dudes came from Gardner Webb with him and before
Right.
he left. And then they lost probably another eight to the portal that were really good players on top of it. So you start going down the line. Samford had 51. We were there for Samford Senior Day, and it took us an hour to go through Senior Day. They lost 51 seniors. I'm sitting in the box going, is this ever going to end? You know, so they lost, so to me, one of the things I start looking at is okay, back on defense. Like, all right, we got our two best defensive ends are back. Our top five, probably, if you look at it, we lost probably three defensive linemen that I felt were good football players, but we feel like we replaced those guys. At linebacker, we lost probably two or three of those, but we have four back that we feel really good about. At safety, everybody's back except for one, and he was inconsistent, really. Um, we feel like those guys are really good. Our young corners, we think, are going to be really, really good players. So, I look at that side of the ball. It doesn't worry. Like I said, on offense, I mean, who's got better skill guys than we do?
Right.
Nobody. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Like
Yeah.
you know, we had 21 interceptions this year, and we had 18 in the last 7 games. And a lot of that's because we were learning what was going on, but also a lot of it is because we play against the best receivers in the league every day. That's how I look at it.
Sure.
And we got a quarterback back. We got there's a cut, and really it's probably going to come down to replacing those offense, those key guys, like I said earlier, in the offensive line. And if we can get that stuff done, guys, listen. I mean, I like our team. I really do, and I like the way they've been working. Our kind of our mantra this year's no excuses, right? We don't want to hear any excuses. Like that's how we break everything down. No excuses. There's no excuse for us not to be good this year. And I think we all agree with that. They're doing it. Coach Bates is doing a heck of a job with those guys. Their effort so far and their want to has been outstanding. You know, we got to just keep getting. I kind of got on our defensive guys at the end of the year. I said, guys, I feel like we're a little bit front runnerish, and that's a bad word, man. Because when things are going good, we're good. When one or two things go bad, you guys just we can't fold our tent. We gotta you gotta buck up and you gotta play harder and play better and more disciplined. And that's really who I am. And I'm not sure those guys are quite ready for me. When it came to that aspect of it. But they know me now, and they know our defensive staff now, and I can't tell you how proud I am of the way those guys are working right now, trying to learn the system, you know, coming in on their own because you can't really do meetings and stuff, but they can come in on their own, watch film with you. Well, I got like when I'm in there, can't get guys to like I'm trying to get some work done, and they're like, hey coach, you got a few minutes to watch film. Hey coach, you got a few minutes to watch film, and so to me, that tells you that we're right where we need to be. I'm not sweating it. The schedule works out pretty good. We don't have to fly to Montana, because if you look at it, we had basically two money games. And if anybody thinks that Montana trip is an easy trip, they're crazy, right? I mean, and we said it from the get go. That place was louder than NC State ever thought about being,
Yeah.
I
and
was
I'm
there.
sure,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
there. It was incredible.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
And they're
Yep.
right on top of you. Literally, I've got the iPad out and I'm looking at some stuff, and I got a guy looking down over top of me, yelling at me, just laugh, and I'm just kind of like, this is interesting.
I've been
Uh,
to some big games and I've never heard a stadium that loud. I know they get that loud, but that was
well,
amazing.
don't you think it's because of the mountain?
Yeah,
The mountain sitting right behind it.
Yeah.
That noise just reverbs right back off the mountain, and that's what So 26,000 sounds like 60,000. You know
right.
what I mean? I mean, I hate to say that, but and they got a good football team, and what's kind of funny to me is you go back and you watch that game again. Some of the calls that we got against us, some of the calls we didn't get, they
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an out of conference team from somewhere else that goes in there in the regular season, you better be that much better than them
Right.
jokers to
Yeah.
win that football game.
Their own
And we still
announcer
should have won
said,
it.
"I'm not sure that was the right call."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We still should have won that game, and
Yes,
that's
we should.
that's what's frustrating for us as coaches. If you look, I mean, every game we lost, we were ahead in the fourth quarter, every single game, and that's where we talk about finishing, no excuses, all that stuff that we're keep on working on. And I'm not an excuse guy. I'll be the first guy that like I was on myself about as bad as anybody. I mean, my wife had taught me off the ledge several times coming back from games. Yeah, I mean, if you think
Oh,
I'm
I saw
joking,
a
I am
couple of
not joking.
posts after games there, Coach. Just saying.
I am I am not the greatest loser in the world. Let's just say that.
Uh, well, Coach, next Saturday we're having our signing event over at the
Yeah,
Health and Human Sciences Building, room 204. You need to call the Catamount Club if you haven't
yeah.
reserved a space. Begins at 10 o'clock in the morning. This is a new venue for us. I think it's going to be a lot better than the old auxiliary gym. And of course, after that, we've got basketball with the Citadel Bulldogs at 3:30. It's a doubleheader. The women play at 1, the men play at 3:30. But big event. I really look forward to this every year, and it's going to be fun listening to some of these guys, these coaches break down these names like you were talking about the the Serbians and so forth,
The
the
big Serb.
Spaniards, yeah. But
Yeah.
really looking forward to that event Saturday. That's again, that'll be over at the Health and Human Sciences Building up Old Savannah Road, room 204, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be. I actually enjoyed that last year, because I think you work so much with this stuff, and recruiting is such a big part
Yeah,
of what we try to do with this. And I think people panicked a little bit when we didn't sign a lot of guys early. But again, that was kind of what we talked about, doing the whole time, because as a group, we sat down, and we don't do anything without thinking it out. And we sat down and said, you know, over the last 4 years, this is Coach Bell, and started talking. He's like, the guys that we signed later have been our better players. And that second thing, the guys we signed early, some of them haven't panned out. Now, some of them were this
right.
star and that star. I want to be that guy. Who's the star guy? Because that guy's wrong all the time, and nobody says anything to him. But at the end of the day, I felt like what you're seeing, because of the portal, because of all the different stuff happening, there are so many good high school football players out there right now. It's unbelievable. Like these guys that we're signing now, 5 years ago would have been Power Four, G5 guys. And we got 2, 3, 6 foot corners, and that can run. We got three receivers that run 10-7 or better in the 100. Got two nickels that were you know all state 3 stars. Got two linebackers that are 6'2", 215 that can really run. I mean, got 6'8", 340 offensive lineman out of Florida that's can do a split. You're like that's crazy athletic. Got a big center out of Spartanburg that I played with his dad back in the day, and 6'5", 300 pound center. So I mean, you start looking at all this stuff, going, man, we're in pretty good shape, and we just got to get these kids in here, learn the system, learn what we're trying to do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Cool. Well, one last question for you, unless Steve's got something else, but it's kind of off topic. But
Okay.
a lot of the fans say, "Oh man, if we could just improve the stadium, and if we could get these improvements done." Well, do you think that would help the recruiting? I mean, as well as we've done, would those kinds of things add even more to it? Or your
I,
thoughts?
I, that's a great question. It really is, and I've got a I got a couple things I want to talk about on this. Right. So I think there's a fine line nowadays. Right. I think the stadium improvement is going to. Anytime you can make your facility look better, it's great. Personally, I wish they. I know they've got several things that they were trying to do. I know the stadium part of it's going to be first. I almost wish the weight room slash locker room part was first, but hey, that's the second part that they're trying to get going, but you'll take anything you can get. But I think nowadays, I think what you're going to see is yes, that's important, but the other part that's important is having a little bit of NIL money, having some things that and we don't expect to have a lot. We know what we're dealing with. We're an FCS program. We're a program of, like this school's a teacher school, right? It was, it was school of teachers. My parents were both
Right.
teachers. I mean, I get it, right? So we don't have the law schools like, Mercer, I think's got a law school, med school, all that kind of stuff where they may have some bigger money people that are willing to help with that. At some point, we got to get that part going too, because for us to like we lost 4 kids this year just because we didn't have any of that kind of stuff, or didn't have enough. And it is what it is. That's the frustrating part for us as coaches. I think now is you could have a greatest relationship with a kid in the world, and he's not going to go where the relationship is. He's going to go where that money is, and where his situation's better. Is that right? I don't know if it's right or not, but it's just it's the way of the world right now. So I do believe what you're saying is correct. Yes, if the nicer stadium, redoing the weight room, redoing the things like that, where the kid, my biggest thing is everything you want to do needs to affect the student athlete. Does that make sense? Like if you're going to upgrade your facilities, it needs to affect the student athlete the most. And that's where we got to make sure we're getting that done. But then you got to have a little, like I said, a little bit of extra. We know that we're not going to be able to have that crazy amount. We'd love to, but we know we're never going to have the crazy money NIL. But what you got to understand is these people like Montana. Let's say Montana that you're playing. You got to remember Montana State, South Dakota State, North Dakota State. Those are the dang Clemson or like they're the
Yeah,
North Carolina states of their state, right? So they
Right.
have that kind of money. And if we're going to try to win at the level that Coach Bell and I want to win, and play for in the playoffs and play, for national championships, y- you know, I hate to say this, but it's Jimmys and Joes sometimes over X's and O's. I mean, X's and O's are super important, and but you saw it last night in the Super Bowl, right? Basically, that front four for the Philadelphia Eagles on defense said, "We're winning this football game."
Right.
And they did. And like it's. Let me tell you something. As a defensive coordinator, having 4 guys who can rush the passer, right? And I can just play coverage and then get after that passer and sack him a bunch of times and everything else. That makes my life a heck of a lot easier. That's the point where I say the Jimmys and Joes, over the X's and O's. You can
Right.
you can scheme somebody up to crazy, but if you don't have Jimmys and Joes to execute, it doesn't really matter.
right,
So that's the probably in a 3-part look is what you just asked me. That's how I see things, and I don't know if anybody agrees with what I'm saying, but that's kind of how I see it. Is like the facilities and all that stuff is outstanding. It'll help everything else, but I think there's got to be that extra part too that we got to keep working together on with everybody in the community. And like I said, we're not. I don't think anybody's asking for like we understand where we are. Let's just say that we understand where we are and what we're dealing with. But at the same time, anything anybody can do, we'd love to have it. So.
right. Got anything else, Steve?
I think Coach Odom has covered it tremendously, and I hope that our audience, our Catamount football fans, well, just Western Carolina fans in general, tune in and watch this because, Coach, this is exactly what we were looking for out of you, and you did a tremendous job of breaking it down, explaining it, and putting it on our level. So appreciate it so much, you joining us and stepping up here. And I won't know a lot of our fans urge them to watch this and listen.
Yep. I appreciate
Well,
you. Great half hour. We will look forward to getting you back maybe in the springtime to talk a little bit about
sure.
how things are rolling around there. I had other questions like on
Okay.
conditioning and things like that, but we'll get to those next time we talk.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime you ever need me, love to have it. And go Catamounts. We're going to get this thing done. I
All
All
promise you.
right.
right.
Thanks so
All
much.
All
right.
right.
That does it for this version of Tracking the Cats, brought to you by Stanberry Insurance in Silva, Highlands, and Waynesville. We will see you all again in about 2 weeks.